Hi everyone, this is Courtney Grunholz back at my book Nook. With my last video that I posted, I don't know if you noticed, there was kind of like a lag in between when I filmed it, because I kind of actually filmed these videos beforehand before I actually post them on YouTube. So my husband was on vacation last week, and so I was spending time with him, which is why I didn't really do any book note videos. And but I promised I would be back to talk more about my teen, young adult fiction collection, but I also said that I had a few things I was going to try to find for this one, and also talk about books that I had on my Kindle. So, the other book that I was trying to find when I went through my last video was another book about short stories that were short stories that take fairy tales and make them more adult. And one of them I talked about was The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. And I found my copy. It's a really thin little book. It's through Penguin Books, so it's just a very short book. There's only like 126 pages. Yeah, there's only like 126 pages. And so these are all written by Angela Carter. So The Bloody Chamber and Other Stories. There are 10. There's only 10 stories in this. The Bloody Chamber, The Courtship of Mr. Lyon, The Tiger's Bride, Puss in Boots, The Earl King, The Snow Child, The Lady of the House of Love, The Werewolf, The Company of Wolves, and Wolf Alice. So I got this because I saw the movie The Company of Wolves, which was based off the short story in this book, and it's directed by Neil Jordan, who went on to direct Interview with the Vampire, the film adaptation. So I bought this after I saw the movie. So so it takes stuff, like Red Riding Hood, Bluebeard, Puss in Boots, Beauty and the Beast, Sleeping Beauty, stuff like that, and just makes them a little more adult and darker. So I have that. That's what I was going to find, and I have a couple of other books. I'm not sure if I will talk about them or not later, but some more little surprises that I might dig up eventually. Also, my videos are going to be having delays in between them because I'm probably going to be going back to work soon in the workforce, so I will be working. It'll be part-time, but, when I have days off, I may have to get other things done, so these videos, I'm still going to do them, but they won't be like my number one priority. So, but I'll still try to churn them out. But I found that, and I said I was going to talk about it. So, also the books that I have on my Kindle. So I have it right here. I got my little library. I have it's a novel called Friend by Diana Henstel, and it was actually supposed to be the basis for the movie Deadly Friend that was directed by Wes Craven. But there was a lot of studio interference, so it's got some points of it from the book, but it's totally different. So this book's more like a sci-fi horror kind of thing than it is an actual horror book. So, and because the main protagonist in the story is Paul, he's a genius, but he's only 12 years old. So it's downgraded a little bit from like the teen characters. But I got a copy of that because I wanted to read it. So, and they had it for the Kindle, so I bought it. I also said I have some books by Mercedes Lackey. I have The Black Swan, which is retold from the point of view of Odile, daughter of Rothbart, the Black Swan. And I also have A Tangled Web by Mercedes Lackey. And then I have Cold Spell by Jackson Pierce. So, and then of course I have another version of the fairy tale East of the Sun, West of the Moon. by Edith Pato called East. And I have some Fear Street books on here. We're going to get to Fear Street eventually. I've got a lot of Fear Street books, so. But I have 2 of the Fear Street Saga books. I've got number 7, Children of Fear, and number 9, Heart of the Hunter. I recently got an actual physical copy of Heart of the Hunter, but I'm still going to keep one on my Kindle. I have the Super Chiller High Tide. I also got a copy of that. It's not a very good copy. It's an old library copy. I guess it used to belong to the library, and then somebody sent it to Goodwill. And now I have it, so it's not in the best condition, but I have a physical copy of it. I may try to get a better copy in the future. I also have The Secret Bedroom, and then I have another set of Fear Street Super Chiller books, the Silent Night trilogy that he wrote. I have a physical copy of Silent Night, the first one, but on here I have Silent Night 2 and Silent Night 3, but I've just now purchased physical copies of those from Half Price Books. So, but I will still keep them on my Kindle so that I have, stuff to read if I ever go anywhere. I have a novel called Once Upon a Kiss by Claire Delacroix. It's, of course, a Sleeping Beauty basis novel that happens, the Sleeping Beauty is from like a different time and place, and she ends up in modern times. And it's found by, a modern young man. So, I also have 2 books by Cameron Doki from the Once Upon a Time kind of series that they write. I have Sunlight and Shadow and Winter's Child. Sunlight and Shadow is based on the Mozart opera The Magic Flute, and Winter's Child is based on the Snow Queen. So I have those. I also have 3 books by Regina Doman. They are The Shadow of the Bear, which is a retelling of Snow White and Rose Red. Black as Night, which is a retelling of Snow White. And then Waking Rose, which is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. Regina Doman's books have kind of a little bit of Christian values in them. So in Black as Night, the Snow White story, the main character named Blanche, she's the Snow White story, and she ends up staying at a monastery. Instead of 7 dwarves, there's 7 monks that she ends up staying with. So it's kind of interesting, and so I got those 3 because I looked for a long time and I couldn't ever find physical copies of them, so I got them on my Kindle. But I probably can find physical ones. I just need to try a little bit harder. But again, I also have Ice by Sarah Beth Durst, which is another East of the Sun, West of the Moon retelling. And I have 5 Kindle books that were edited by Ellen Datlow and Terry Windling, who did Snow White, Blood Red, my collection of short stories that I have. They have 5 other ones. There's Ruby Slippers and Golden Tears, Blackthorn White Rose, Black Swan White Raven, Black Heart Ivory Bones, and Silver Birch Blood Moon. So I got the other 5 on my Kindle because I couldn't find physical copies of them. So, but that's what I have book-wise on my Kindle of, books. But I also have audiobooks on my Kindle as well. So I'll go ahead and share what I have with those. So, of course, I have the Dollenganger Saga, Flowers in the Attic, Petals on the Wind, If There Be Thorns, Seas of Yesterday, and Garden of Shadows by V.C. Andrews, all in audiobook format. I also have 2 Stephen King books. I have Carrie, which is read by Sissy Spacek, and I have It, which is read by Stephen Weber. So, Flowers in the Attic ones don't really tell you, right on them who narrated them. So, but the ones for Carrie and It by Stephen King do. So, and then of course I have the Sleeping Beauty quadrilogy written by Anne Rice. The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty, Beauty's Punishment and Beauty's Release, and Beauty's Kingdom. And I actually found 5 audiobooks of Fear Street books. They kind of go through 5 books like in the mid part of the series, and I guess those are the only ones that they released audiobooks for. But there's one for Bad Dreams, The Dare, Double Date, The New Boy, and The Thrill Club. And they all kind of, not exactly in that order, but they're all around the same time. So I guess that was the only time they ever did audiobooks for Fear Street books, because they're the only ones that I found on Audible. So, but that's what I have on my Kindle for actual books and audiobooks. Sorry. When I talk fast, it kind of gives me hiccups. So, but that's what I have on my Kindle to enjoy. And like I said, I got like physical copies of the Fear Street books. So, because on my blog right now, I'm focusing on Fear Street, so it's easier to have a physical copy of the book in my hand to read if I want to review it. So if I ever want to review anything that's not a Fear Street book in the future, I have to have a physical copy of it because it's easier for me to read and go through the plot. But I do have some kind of electronic books. So the next things of books that I have up here on my shelf that I'm going to talk about is, well, first I am going to start, even though I have these over here, I'm going to start with this. This is the Beautiful Creatures series, is what I'm going to call it. I think it has an actual real name to it, but just to, because, they have them as a Beautiful Creatures novel. So, but I got interested in buying this whole series when I saw, of course, the movie adaptation of Beautiful Creatures. That is by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. So, of course, I saw the advertisement for the movie, and I figured I would go ahead and give it a whirl. So, Lena Duchesne is unlike anyone the small southern town of Gatlin has ever seen, and she's struggling to conceal her power and a curse that has haunted her family for generations. But even within the overgrown gardens, murky swamps, and crumbling graveyards of the forgotten South, a secret cannot stay hidden forever. Ethan Waite, who has been counting the months until he can escape from Gatlin, is haunted by dreams of a beautiful girl he has never met. When Lena moves into the town's oldest and most infamous plantation, Ethan is inexplicably drawn to her and determined to uncover the connection between them. In a town with no surprises, one secret could change everything. So, the movie came out, I watched it, I liked it, and I figured, well, since it says it's book 1 of a series, I have to have the whole series. If I'm going to read books that are part of a series, I have to have it. And no, I have not gotten around to reading them yet, but I do have the entire set of them. So it starts with Beautiful Creatures, and then goes to Beautiful Darkness, then Beautiful Chaos, and then Beautiful Redemption. So I have those books, but yeah, I like the movies, and it says on the back of the edition of the book they released with the movie tie-in, give this to fans of Stephenie Meyer's Twilight or HBO's True Blood series. So, of course, I like Twilight, so of course I would definitely be interested in reading this. And then afterwards, there's like a little spin-off of it. So, it is a spin-off which goes from focusing on Lena and Ethan, which are the main drive of the Beautiful Creature series. It focuses on Lena's cousin Ridley Duchesne, and she is, she's a dark spellcaster, so like a evil witch or a siren. So it then goes off talking about Ridley instead, and it starts with dangerous creatures, and then it goes into dangerous deception. So, of course, I haven't gotten around to reading these yet. Of course, with a lot of my books, I haven't gotten around to reading them. And now that I'm going back to work, when it comes time to read books, I'll actually, I won't have so much free time that I'll read all of my books, but now I can read them slower, and I'll eventually get through all these books that I have. But like I said, once I get a book from a series, and if you're going to have a series or you're going to have a spin-off of it, I'm going to read it like the way they now have, they now have the sequel to My Sweet Audrina by B.C. Andrews, and then they have the Christopher's Diary, like, spin-offs of, like, the Dollenganger series, Flowers in the Attic. So if I read a series, I'm going to read all the books. May not have gotten to all of them yet, but so. And these are actually books that I have read some of them. I haven't read a few of them, but I have 6 books here by Alex Flinn, and she writes fairy tale retellings, of course. I like those. So the one that got me into wanting to read Alex Flynn's books is Beastly by Alex Flynn. So this is when the movie came out, the movie version of it, in March 2011, because it said so on the back of the book. So I got this to read it when I knew it was coming out. So the book and the movie are a lot different, because in the book, our main character Kyle, when he gets turned into a beast, it's called Beastly, so I'm not really spoiling it, and it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. He kind of goes like into this chat room with like other like cursed or fairy tale people, so they have that inside the books, and they don't really acknowledge it in the movie. And plus, the ending of the book is way better than the end of the movie. The alternate ending is the way this book really ends. So, and of course, Kyle doesn't get, like, just scars and tattoos and stuff. He actually turns into an actual beast. So, and, so he, gets cursed into a beast, and there's this girl in his class, Lindy, and, he thinks that maybe once he, gets to know her, she might be the way to break his curse. So, so the next Alex Flynn book that I read after Beastly was A Kiss in Time, which is a Sleeping Beauty book. So, Talia, of course, is our Sleeping Beauty. So she, falls underneath a curse. And then about 300 years in the future, a boy named Jack stumbles upon the castle, which is like a tourist attraction, where he and his friend are with a tour group of their classmates. So he ends up stumbling upon Talia, and he ends up waking her up. So what happens is Talia and Jack have to end up leaving Talia's kingdom, and she ends up going with Jack to, modern day, like, Miami, Florida. So it just kind of goes back and forth how, she's from a different time, he's from this time, and she's a really spoiled, snooty type of princess, and Jack's like a commoner, and she just can't believe that this common boy woke her up, and he's not a prince and everything. But so I read it, and it's a really good book. It's kind of interesting, how you take that fish out of water thing, and kind of also like the unrequited sexual attention kind of thing, because Talia notes that Jack's cute, and Jack notes that Talia is beautiful, but so she's a princess. He's just a normal American boy. But as the story goes on, Talia starts having like these weird feelings, and like almost like the curse is trying to come back on her, but it has an interesting kind of twist to it. So I won't spoil the twist, but of course I love Sleeping Beauty, so after I read Beastly, I had to find this. And the next one I remember reading is Cloaked by Alex Flinn. It takes a whole bunch of fairy tales and adds them together. And of course, it takes place in South Beach, Florida. So, and it kind of throws in like the Frog Prince. The main character of the book, he works in a shoe repair shop, so kind of like the cobbler and the elves. If anybody remembers that? Or there's like a shoemaker, and all these little elves come and help this poor cobbler make these shoes. So, there's also a talking fox, and giants, and enchanted swans. So it's like a fairy tale mashup of a bunch of fairy tales. But it's interesting. It's just told in that modern day fairy tale kind of thing. So it's just interesting to take fairy tales and put them in like the modern world, and not have them just be like back in like fantasy times or olden times, or just adding them into like today's standards. The next one that I read was Towering by Alex Flinn. It's a Rapunzel retelling. So, of course, the girl locked up in a tower, and ends up falling in love with a young man, and so it's been a while since I read it though. But again, Alex Flinn is really good at like retelling these fairy tales in modern times, but still having like the magic and the romance of like certain fairy tales, and of course having the adventure of the more adventure-y ones. So that's the next one. Then two that I have not read by Alex Flinn. There is Beheld, and it actually goes about telling the story of the witch who cursed Kyle Kingsbury in Beastly. Her name is Kendra. So she ends up in this book, she's trying to find James, the man that she loved. And a love that lasts through the ages. I first met James over 300 years ago. Since then, I have tangled with witch hunters and wolves, helped a miller's daughter spin straw to gold, cowered in London as German bombs fell, and lived through heaven knows how many shipwrecks. I once even turned a boy into a beast in order to discover kindness and true love. But you know that story. So it tells about Kendra trying to find James, and going through all these different scenarios, and weaving, of course, other fairy tales together. So it's kind of like Cloaked, where it melds fairy tales together to tell one story. So there's also another book that involves Kendra. It's one that I have not read yet. It's called Bewitching. So, but yeah, it's another one about Kendra. So I'll eventually get that one. And then, of course, another one I have, the last Alex Flynn book I have, Mirrored. And, of course, it's a Snow White retelling. But it Yep. So it's a Snow White retelling, and Kendra is involved in the story, but beauty is the key to everything. At least that's how it seems to Violet. Ugly, bullied, and lonely. To be beautiful in her eyes is to have power and love, and when Kendra the witch teaches Violet how to use magic, she may finally get what she wants. For Celine, beautiful since birth, her looks have been a hindrance. She discovers that beauty is also a threat, especially to her stepmother Violet, who doesn't want anyone sharing the attention she worked so hard to get, and who will do anything to be the fairest of them all. But beauty isn't only skin deep, and love isn't based on looks alone. And though Violet and Celine may seem to be completely opposite, their lives are almost mirrored. So and of course I like Snow White retellings too. Sleeping Beauty and Snow White retellings are my favorite ones. And, then of course like Beauty and the Beast, Rapunzel, Cinderella, stuff like that. So of course I want to read it. But Alex Flinn does have books that are not fairy tale retellings. I just happen to like the fairy tale retelling ones. So it's not that I wouldn't want to read her other works. It's just I, of course, really like the fairy tale ones. She also has Breathing Underwater, Diva, Fade to Black, Nothing to Lose, and Breaking Point. So those are the books that are not fairy tale retellings, but, I like fairy tale retellings. So I have a lot of them. And like I said, I haven't read Beheld or Mirrored yet, and I'll eventually find Bewitching. So, but I like how she has this mixture of fairy tales in modern times, and weaves it through, and there's banter and comedic moments, and then touching moments, and romance, and so it's a good meshing of the two. So what am I going to talk about in my next Book Nook video? Well, I am going to be getting to the point where I'm going to be talking about a bunch of goodies. A lot of the point horror books that I have. Of course, my Fear Street series. I also have a bunch of books by Christopher Pike, and some books by Lois Duncan, and books that I might eventually get to. I'm not sure if I want to talk about them yet. I have Babysitter's Club books by Anne M. Martin, and I also have tie-in novels that are from Charmed and Buffy the Vampire Slayer that I might talk about. I might talk about the Charmed ones. Most of the Buffy books that I have, they are just novelizations of episodes of Buffy. So, I may talk about them, I may not. Maybe it's just like a treat for like people who like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, and maybe a few other goodies that are not actual, like any kind of fiction books. Maybe a few of the non-fiction books that I have. I'm not really sure. But as of right now, I'm going to be going back to work. So videos are going to be few and far between. So whenever I get the time to talk about it, I will. So again, I apologize that my last video seemed to have kind of a lag, but husband was on vacation. We went to a concert. So time just kind of got away from me on posting the video. So like I said, I filmed them in advance. So details are likely to change. So, but until next time, I hope you have a good day, and I hope to see you back here at my Book Nook very soon. So, until then, wish me luck going back and joining the workforce. Have a good day, everybody.